Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Nothing But Locks podcast. I'm your host, Allie Melnicki, accompanied by my favorite coworker, Robert Kowalski. How are you doing today, Robert?
Allie, I'm doing great. I am bewaring the Ides of March. At least that's what my almanac told me to do.
It has been a weird week. I know it was a full moon earlier this week. I've been feeling a little off, so I'm not truly into all that stuff, but hey, crazy things happen in March. That's why we have March Madness, and that's where I want to start out this episode, Robert. And this is the week. Currently, we are entering the conference championship. So let's take a look at the Volunteers. Right now, they rank in the AP top 25, number 17. They didn't have a great conference record in the SEC. I believe they were something about 11-2. They had a much better, or 11-7. They had a much better overall record. Their conference, they kind of struggled. They did get big wins. They beat teams like Alabama. They beat Texas. But it seems like against some of the bigger schools, the Quadrant 2 schools, they seem to struggle. Heading into the conference championship, first of all, let me ask you this, Robert. What are Tennessee's odds to win the conference championship? And what is your prediction of what they will do in the SEC conference?
Yeah, great. This is so basically from a seeding perspective, obviously, we know that Tennessee is going to be, seeded quite high. They already had their bye, and they've got that free pass into their game that's actually going to be played later today. Tennessee, 3-1 to win the SEC. And I believe that outside of Alabama, probably not going to see anyone else challenge for the championship later this weekend for their Allie.
Yeah, I haven't been on Alabama since the beginning of the season. I know what everything happened lately, but what's your take on Alabama? What kind of shot do they have?
Very good, actually. So when we look at Alabama's perspective and what they've done this year, they're probably neck and neck with Tennessee in terms of how loaded they are and what their plans are going to be. Forget about the SEC, but for the entire title. I honestly think that the kids that are playing there right now, look, Brandon Miller, first off, forget about Brandon Miller because he's a legitimate superstar, right? But top 10 defense, completely reliable guards, and legitimately, Brandon Miller, there's probably not many other collegiate athletes out there that I think would probably have a bigger impact on their school and on the result that we're about to see going into the next few weeks.
He is a player, Miller, despite the controversy around him. He's a player that can take over the game. I don't know if Tennessee has that type of player. Do you see it in any of their guards or forwards?
Not quite, no. With Tennessee, it's probably a little bit different. Look, they've all had really, really great seasons. And honestly, we're kind of splitting hairs when it comes to who's going to be in the championship. Look, we can talk about, Kentucky, and heck, we could even talk about how hot Texas A&M was down the stretch. But with all of these games, I honestly think right now, Alabama, Tennessee, those would probably be, I'm right now with about 90% certainty, that's going to be our championship matchup. I'm really looking forward to it because to me, it's going to be, will Tennessee be able to stop Miller and break down the defense that Alabama has shown that's been so incredible? I mean, like top 5 incredible in the entire nation this year, Allie.
One thing about Tennessee, and we talked about this last week, I envision Tennessee being, I'm going to cap it off as an Elite 8. Do they have the potential to get to a Final Four? Sure, but we'll get to that in a minute. One thing that separates Tennessee from all the other teams in the SEC, Robert, I see is their defense. They've allowed the least most points all season in the SEC. Do you think their defense can carry them far come tournament time?
Yeah, definitely. And that's where I'm probably focusing more on is exactly the guard play. And then obviously, for me, look, Alabama's been the top team in the conference all year long. Kentucky, did they get hot in the second half of the season? Yeah, they've been playing excellent. If you could put aside that miserable home loss to Vanderbilt, I think honestly with what I see in terms of odds and then in terms of who's actually going to be, for your best shot. Look, there's dark horse candidates. I think honestly, maybe a little bit of Arkansas here or there, but honestly, with the defense that Tennessee's played, they're probably going to match up, if not with I don't know if I'm ready to give them the number 1 seed. They'll probably have to win the SEC to get that. But for certain, we're going to see them highly, highly ranked. Welcome back, Tennessee.
One team I do like in the SEC, and I picked them last week to beat Alabama, and they did, is Texas A&M. What do you think? But I actually think Tennessee matches up well against A&M. If this is the finals, who would you take, Tennessee or A&M?
Yeah. Look, I mean, it's worth noting, right, that Texas A&M, they've received the fourth highest odds in the pool to win the SEC. Vanderbilt, even though they're the number 6 seed, they're valued as the 8th highest likely to win it all. And then obviously, Tennessee is right now number 2, right behind Alabama. I do like me some Texas A&M. I mean, number 2 seed, 5-1 odds. Honestly, Allie, if you're looking for a shot, for a really good price, Texas A&M at 5-1, I'd probably look to jump on them instead of someone that's a lot tighter than Tennessee or Alabama. But, to tell you the truth, it's going to be very difficult to see them whittle their way out of it. But if I just break them down just from a power rank perspective, Bama, Tennessee, very tight 1 and 1A. Kentucky, just a notch higher than Texas A&M. And then it's a steep drop off to Arkansas and Auburn. Missouri, I'm not too excited about them at all. Vanderbilt, not at all. So yeah, I'm looking at Bama, Tennessee, 1 and 1A, and then Kentucky, Texas A&M, not too far off from there. Honestly, Texas A&M's probably got a good shot to make the final, but things have to go their way in the bracket right now, Allie.
Yeah, I like Texas A&M a lot, and I actually I put them above Kentucky by actually more than a significant amount. If you look at their top 25 record, A&M's 4-0 against top 25 teams. Kentucky's 2-4. I know it's Calipari. I know that come tournament time, whether it's March Madness, whether it's a conference tournament, he tends to get the most out of his Kentucky players. But I think this A&M team is being vastly overlooked. But we'll get into more of that next week when we talk about March Madness as a whole. But I do want to get into March Madness really quickly before we move on to the Titans. Let's focus again on the Volunteers. I mentioned, I think that they probably have I would say I would pick them without looking at a bracket to get to the Elite 8. I think they get, come tournament time, probably a 3, maybe 4 seed if they don't do well in this SEC tournament. I think they will. I think that they might even get a shot at number 2 seed. Right now, what do you think Tennessee is going to get seeded come tournament time?
If we see them win the SEC, Allie, we're probably looking at them getting the 1.
Wow, really?
I do believe that, because honestly, right now in my ranks, Bama, it's either going to be Alabama or Tennessee. So one of those two will get a 1, depending on who wins the SEC. That's for certain. The thing that I'm looking at right now that's probably most effective when we break down these two schools, it's again what their strength of schedule has done. I'm sure that's going to be something that they'll be looking at. Right. I feel that right now their schedules have been, 26-5, 22-9. They're really, really outperforming so well from anything I've had them considered. So when I look at the entire breakdown of this entire tournament, it's going to end up becoming who's going to win the SEC. And unfortunately, that's really the only way I could look at it at this point, Allie. If we just look at strength of schedule, Tennessee, it's probably looking at a almost top 30. And then Alabama just had a little bit of a better strength of schedule playing outside of the SEC. So, heck, now I'm thinking about it, even if Alabama keeps it close but loses the SEC championship to Tennessee, they still might get a number 1.
I think Alabama would get a number 1 if they lose it over Tennessee.
Over Tennessee.
Here's the thing that worries me about Tennessee. Since February 1st, they've struggled mightily. They've only won 4 games, Robert, and they lost 6. That's not a great resume to show the committee, because we talked about it last week. A lot factors in how well you have been playing as of late. I don't think this is one of the hottest teams. This team was a top 10 team earlier in the year, and they've shrunk now to number 17. Do you think they could turn it back on again and have that early season success?
Yeah, I do. And again, that's because their backbone is built on their defense.
Yeah.
Now, especially as we're going to enter the SEC championship, I definitely feel that we're going to see that. So a return to form, definitely far more likely for Alabama than anyone else in the SEC.
Yeah. So real quick, let's again focus on the Volunteers. What is your prediction without the bracket being made right now? Say they get to be a 2 seed, Tennessee. I think that's a safe bet to say. What's your prediction? Do they get to the Elite Eight? Do they have a shot at the Final Four? What do you think?
I do think that right. So on the blind, if we just see them matching up, I'm going to go and sync them into the Elite Eight.
Yeah,
so
I think that's safe.
That'll be their floor for me, Ali. And then it's a matter of bracketing out from there, because if they end up running into a buzzsaw, it could cause problems. But I honestly think that they'll have plenty in the barrel to overcome pretty much anyone out there. Not really too big on the Big 12, not really too concerned about the Pac-12 outside of UCLA. So I honestly think that if we start to see them start to play some really stronger, higher ranked schools from other conferences, I think they'll have the ability to overcome that. Really, the ones that I'm mostly concerned about are, seeing someone probably eke out, like I'm looking at maybe like Texas or something. But again, on the blind, absolutely the floor is going to be the Elite Eight for Tennessee.
Yeah, I agree. It would worry me if they get in Kansas's bracket. I still think Kansas has I think they're a better team than the national championship team that was them last year. I think that Houston, I know that you disagree with me on Houston, but I think that this is the best Houston team I've seen in a decade. I really love their defense. I really think that they could go. I'm not big on Purdue. I've never been big on Purdue come tournament time. Arizona, I think, is a sleeper. I would watch out for Arizona as well. I think they really have come back. And like I said, UConn's my big play this year. All right, well, we'll have plenty more to talk about once the bracket is. I know it's getting too exciting because we have Selection Sunday coming up. But we do have some big news this week, Robert, because Tuesday, I believe, was the deadline that teams had to put the franchise tag on players. Now, we know the whole Lamar Jackson thing. It was controversial. I agree with the Ravens' perspective on putting the franchise tag on him. This is a guy that has missed almost half the season 2 years in a row. I don't think he's been as good as the MVP year that he had. I don't think he could win in the playoffs. So I'm not against the Ravens for putting the non-exclusive tag on them. But let's turn to the Titans. Titans, they had a disappointing year. They had a shot to make the playoffs. They were in control of that division all year, and then Jacksonville got hot at the end. The Titans got hurt at the end. Obviously, Ryan Tannehill was out. You had Malik Willis come in. He didn't perform well at all. You had Josh Dobbs come in. Let's start with the quarterback position, because obviously that's always the big talk. Should the Titans bring Tannehill back? And if they don't, what are their options going forward at quarterback?
All right. So, Ali,
I know I just gave you a lot there.
No. This is all good, but I want to scale back and just come glide with me for just a
let's do it.
A minute, and let's sail up about 10,000 feet up. I don't want to go into orbit. I just want to take a look and just kind of peer into the way I look at NFL and the state of how you win a championship. Right? We just literally weeks ago just watched Mahomes do it again. And so the way I'm going to go ahead and just create a tier, right? So here's how to win a Super Bowl. A, have Patrick Mahomes. B, have a veteran at like the max cap number of whatever it is. Where are we at? Like now, like 45, 48 million a year.
Yep.
And have like a true bona fide Pro Bowl caliber quarterback that's going to challenge the A, which is Patrick Mahomes. Then there's C, which is having a rookie contract quarterback like Jalen Hurts, right? Yep. And That's good. You're right. That's like a 2B, let's call it that option. And then there's C. That's you having that veteran top 10-ish quarterback, just doing enough, managing, game managing. There we go. I hear that a lot. That game manager that comes in and, you pay him 25, 30 million a year to game manage. Don't be C. Just don't be C, Allie.
But don't sign Jimmy Garoppolo this offseason.
Don't be C.
Hey, he's been to a Super Bowl. I will give him that though.
So that's kind of what I finally settled in at, and that makes me feel very warm and cozy, knowing that, in my eyes at least, that's the way I look at how you break down quarterback tiers right now. So Tennessee, what do we do about Ryan Tannehill? Which is incredible because he's been so good, and then he just fell off a cliff so hard. I do think it is effectively time to, and I guess this all comes down to, really the new Ran Carthon. He's now the GM. Rams got a major decision to make right out of the box, and I honestly think it's time to cut ties with Ryan Tannehill because, well, you don't have Brown to throw to anymore, and you're really starting to run out of time on pretty much the greatest running back I've seen, at least in the last 10 years. So I in my opinion, it is definitely time to cut Ryan Tannehill, Allie.
But then who do you go to, Robert? Because I've seen Malik Willis play last year, and this was a guy that they thought was going to get drafted in probably the top 15, at least at the top, at least round one. And he sunk all the way to round 3. So there had to be something scouts were seeing that put up red flags. And in the games I saw him play last year, he did not look like a professional quarterback whatsoever. He played so bad that they literally had to go and get Josh Dobbs for the final 2 games, who played decently. They probably should have won that Jaguars game the last game of the season if he doesn't fumble. But what do you do with Malik Willis? You're not going to get one of the top 4 quarterbacks. You're not going to get Stroud. You're not going to get Young. You're not going to get Levis. You're not going to get Richardson. Those guys are going to be gone in the top 10. So what do you do, Robert?
Ali, you think Richardson will be a top 10 pick?
I think that the Raiders are going to swoop him up. Robert, Al Davis does not remember Jamarcus Russell. So he's going to go and draft Anthony Richardson. I guarantee it.
This is just so tough. Yeah, I mean, look, Tennessee, right? They got the 11, right? So, man, it's just so many holes to fill, and there's a lot of needs right now. I mean, look, they have made so many great picks. Caleb Farley was really nothing. Isaiah Wilson, no. Darrington Evans, no. And I don't really know. I think at this point, if you really look to kickstart it, maybe you just go out and I don't know, Ali. For me, look, if you drafted Malik Willis, then do something to help him. So do you just go top offensive lineman? Do you go and get, the best probably the best wide receiver? You may end up getting the number 1 wide receiver at the 11, possibly. But I don't know if that's going to matter. If Malik Willis, he struggled. He really struggled. And I just wonder if Willis to Treylon Burks is going to be what you really want right now, or is it just time to just scrap the whole thing? Do you dare pick another quarterback just after 1 year after drafting Willis, Allie?
Here's how I look at the division. The Jaguars found their franchise guy with Trevor Lawrence. I'm still not high in him, but he led them to a playoff win. So give credit where credit due. He's not going anywhere.
Right.
The Colts and the Texans are both going to draft either Stroud or Young. I'm a firm belief that the Colts are going to trade up with the Bears and draft a quarterback, whether that's Young, whether that's Stroud. It's going to be one of the two. And then Houston at number 2 is going to draft the other one. If you're Tennessee, you're going to need to compete with these 3 young guys for the next however many years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, if they're that good. It's not going to be Ryan Tannehill that's going to be able to compete against them for that longevity. So I think you do. I think if you think Will Levis is potentially your guy, you trade up for him. start anew. Listen, I think Derrick Henry is one of the most fearsome running backs in the game today. But are you winning with Derrick Henry and a rookie quarterback? I don't think you are. So let me ask you this, Robert. Do you trade Derrick Henry to get more draft picks or trade up in the draft? What do you think?
I have to be honest. I don't think you're going to get fair market value if you trade Derrick Henry.
Well, that's true.
You just won't, because there's the game. To me, it's becoming, even as incredible as Derrick Henry is, the game I feel is becoming, running backs at a dozen, right? So it's a tough spot, because again, there's so many places that you need to address. And to me, I believe the number one is finding out if Willis is going to be your QB1. I would think the answer has to be yes. So if you do that, it's probably top offensive lineman. And then from there, just start bolstering the offense around them. And if after this year, because to me, 2 years is probably what you need to find out if you've got a quarterback or not. And so I feel that if you're going to make that move and hold on to Willis, get an offensive lineman to, really protect, and then, look to maybe getting another wide receiver. This way you can have a little bit more of a target spread out, and then give Henry a far bigger hole like he's had in like 2-3 years ago.
Yeah. So here is why I brought Lamar Jackson up. If you're at the beginning of my little rant about this, if you're Tennessee, do you even entertain the idea of giving up 2 first-round picks for Lamar Jackson? Because you're going to have to do that because he's on the non-exclusive tag, and sign him with a long-term deal, knowing that you have a top-rate defense in the league. They're still a top 10 defense, in my opinion. You have, again, one of the best running backs in the game. Do you take a shot at Lamar Jackson, or you think that is going to set your franchise back if you're the Titans right now?
No. All right. And I completely was not expecting you coming up with this ace. If I'm told, here you go, and I know that Lamar is completely on board, like we do a full interview, show him the facility, talk to him about, what our plan is, and tell him he's going to be the greatest star Tennessee's ever had, I'd say yes. Because, would he then become like the greatest quarterback Tennessee's ever seen? Going back to McNair, I would probably think yes. I think he'd be the greatest ever.
So I'm not the hugest Lamar Jackson fan. Again, I agree with that. I think he's injured too much. I think he had that one spectacular season where he was MVP. I don't know if you can win with him, but in the Titans situation, I don't think you are looking at this draft right now and seeing you have any shot of rebuilding, because I don't think Levis is that good. My opinion on Anthony Richardson is he's very raw. You're going to have to develop him. He's not ready to go. And you're basically stuck with someone like Malik Willis, who you're going to have to develop as well. I wouldn't mind if the Titans traded for Lamar Jackson, because he immediately comes the most veteran, best quarterback in that division. I think that a healthy Lamar Jackson puts the Titans back over 500 for sure. And that running game in the back between Henry and Jackson's legs, Robert, I don't think you can argue that. I would put the Titans with Lamar Jackson as one of the top 5 teams in the AFC, hands down, this season. What about you?
I actually think they challenge for the AFC Championship that way.
Could be.
Yeah, if we'll surmise, and you tell me that's going to be the setup. So, yeah, you have to give up those picks. So now you're going to need to acquire some more help through free agency and the like. Heck, you could strike some lightning in the 3rd and 4th round at wide receiver. I just think that, again, now that you'd have Lamar, and boy, oh boy, the thought of Lamar and Derrick Henry in the same backfield is pretty wild. That, to me, is enough to challenge for the AFC Championship. And again, going back to how to win a Super Bowl, A, have Patrick Mahomes, B, have a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. Well, guess what? You've got a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback right there. And I would definitely sign up. I would give up those 2 picks to get Lamar Jackson, and then that would give me everything that I would need to challenge for the AFC Championship right today.
Yeah, I agree. Quickly, before we move off and go on to some Grizzlies topics, What about if you lose out on Lamar Jackson and you decide to part ways with Ryan Tannehill? What else is out there? Baker Mayfield, Carson Wentz, Marcus Mariota. Take your pick of the dumpster fire. Jimmy Garoppolo is still sitting out there. I know he's probably the top of it. But are any of those guys worth signing if you have to fall back on? Or do you just say, hey, we're going to see what we have with Willis?
No. Then you literally just jettison and just go with Malik Willis. You drafted him. Look, and obviously it's from a different regime. But if you drafted him, give him the full year. Let him show exactly just how his strengths can be displayed out on the field. And I think you should give the entire season to Willis, win, lose, draw, and no matter how it goes, and then just play out the string. I mean, look. You drafted him with an idea that he can control the offensive playbook that the Titans have. So I would do exactly that. And I agree. If it's not going to be Jackson, if it's not going to be Aaron Rodgers, and I know we haven't talked about him, then just stay with Willis. Don't spend the money. Don't spend the time and the effort and the agony of bringing in someone that you really are considering as a second or even a third option. It's not worth the time.
All right, last point. I know I said the last point was the last point, but this is the last point before we move on to the Grizzlies. Mike Vrabel, obviously, I think he's a future Hall of Famer. If not a future Hall of Famer, I think he's one of the best to play for the Patriots on the defense. He was a longtime Patriots. Robert, does he call Tom Brady and ask him to come out of retirement?
Well, I think that's a conversation that he has to have with brand new OC Tim Kelly. Sure, why not? It's worth a shot, right?
I don't think I'm saying this on my bias. I don't want to see Tom Brady playing this year. I'm just over it. So I hope he doesn't make the call. And at this point, I don't know how big of an upgrade Tom Brady is over Ryan Tannehill. I know Tom Brady is the greatest ever played, but if he struggled with having Mike Evans and Leonard Fournette and Chris Godwin and Julio Jones on his offense, I don't know how he's going to do with Treylon Burks. I just Robert Woods. I just don't. So no Tom Brady. All right, let's move on before we end the show today with the Grizzlies. Robert, lots been going on in the news with John Morant. We'll stay away from that and let's just focus on the Grizzlies prospects. I firmly believe if Morant didn't get hurt last year in the series against the Warriors, that they beat the Warriors. What do you think this year? You have a healthy Morant, you have a healthy Brooks, you have a very good core, Jaren Jackson Jr. I mean, can this team take on the dinosaur that is, and when I say dinosaur, I don't mean old, but just the top guys in Denver? What do you think?
Right. So actually, we've got to dig a little bit deeper and actually see if, heck, maybe it's not going to be Denver in the championship for the conference. Maybe it's Phoenix. Who knows? Maybe it's actually still Golden State with Steph Curry returning. Look, I think
let's wait on Kevin Durant's MRI because he did tweak himself at practice.
That sure did look wild. That layup looked anything than a hot mess. The way he went up with that and just went down. I hope he's not seriously injured. I hope actually no one's seriously injured. No. But the way I break it down today is as follows, right? And then this is all just coming to the outrights and the future pool odds that I've created. I still have the Suns and the Nuggets as 1 and 1A. And then it's a pretty steep drop off to Golden State, Dallas, and the LA Clippers. And right there with them, the Memphis Grizzlies. Then it's a significant drop off. So in the mix of Golden State, Dallas, Clippers, and Memphis, I really think that it's just going to be a matter of ebb and flow. And there's going to be a good window here in the last whatever we have, I think like 20 games remaining in the regular season.
Yeah.
All of them have question marks, right? All of them have injury concerns. The Warriors seem to be poised to get the healthiest. Yesterday, Doncic really, I don't know how long he's going to be out with what looks like a thigh contusion. Clippers, they always have an injury concern one way or another. I think if you look up in Webster's dictionary, load management, I think it's Kawhi Leonard's face that appears first.
Pretty much. I think he coined that term.
So it's honestly, if you look at what the Grizzlies have, it's probably as dynamic a group from all of them. And I think that if we had to pare down among those four, And everyone, of course, so let's consider them all being 100% healthy in a 5 or 7 game series. I do think that the Grizzlies probably pair up in this second pairing with the Clippers, and definitely the Mavericks. I think they probably have the most trouble with the Warriors. But should they come out of a series and then go into a final against the Suns or the Nuggets, it's probably going to have to be where I'm really not too concerned about home court advantage just yet. And if, again, everything being equal, everyone's healthy, it's probably going to be the Suns or the Nuggets favorite in a 7-game series against Memphis, no matter how I cut it up right now. But lots can change, as we can see. I pretty much have the 6th Man of the Year award wrapped up until just a couple of weeks ago, and now everything changes in that pool. So things can still change here with about 24 games remaining, Ali. I still think that Memphis would be the cream of the crop of the second tier, but then would need just a little bit of a boost to beat the Suns and the Nuggets. Do you see it different, though?
I think they beat the Suns in a 7-game series. I do. I think they're much younger. I think that they have more legs. Chris Paul, Kevin Durant, they're all just one step away from getting injured again. I hate to say it, but they have been injury prone their entire careers. I love Devin Booker. I think that he could carry a team. But when I saw John Morant and then play in the playoffs last year, there was a spark that I saw in the Grizzlies that I don't think any other team in the Western Conference has. So I will give them the edge over the Suns. Now, you mentioned home court advantage. I think that if they have to play in the Western Conference Finals, if they have to play Denver and Denver has the home court, I still give Denver the edge because it is a tough place to play with that altitude. And Mile High, I know teams have struggled there. But again, the Grizzlies have youth, and I think youth is their biggest weapon. One team that we didn't mention, though, Robert, is the Kings, and I'm still riding high on the Kings. What do you think about a matchup if we saw the Kings and the Grizzlies in the playoffs?
Yeah, I do understand that perspective, and they've done some really incredible things with what was really not much to be expected. I still think that if we had to, continue to create tears in my eyes, tears. I'm not crying. We had that second group, right? It's obviously we talked about it was the Warriors, Mavericks, Clippers, Grizzlies. So it's a very significant drop, and then it's the Lakers, and then yet another drop before we get to the Kings. Now, I love what they did this year, but I just don't think they have the depth nor the ability to break out and win 20 some odd games to win a championship. Not this year, but things can change in the offseason. I'm not too high on them for this year. I do think if they add one more piece to their roster, probably maybe at center, then they probably could look at entering the second tier and then challenging the Memphis Grizzlies for at least a series price. Not so much of a conference just yet.
Yeah, I think the Kings, the thing that worries me about the Kings is the opposite of the Grizzlies, and that's their defense. I don't think the Kings play that well of defense. Opposite, I think the Grizzlies play fantastic defense. I would rank the Grizzlies number 2 in the Western Conference if it started today. What currently is their odds to A, win the Western Conference, and B, win the whole championship?
So Memphis right now, to win the championship, you could probably find them anywhere between 18, maybe as high as 24-1, which is probably, I would say that would be at value right now. To win the conference, 8-1. So I think that if you're saying that you're going to see them as a conference championship team, well, then 8-1 looks really, really good.
I was going to say, I would take that value because I think that they, outside of Denver, have the best shot. So I think they have the second best shot to win the Western Conference Finals. I don't think they win the finals. I think Milwaukee or Boston is just too good. I think that they just match up terribly against Milwaukee. Boston, they may have a little easier time with, but I still think Boston wins that in a 6-7 game series. What's your prediction today, Robert? Do they win the Western Conference Finals?
The Memphis Grizzlies would make it into the Western Conference Final. But if they would have to play the Suns or the Nuggets today, I would have to make them say about a 170 to maybe a 180 dog to either one of them to win the series, to win the Western Conference. So I would bet against them today unless I see something significant. And of course, injuries being what they are. But today, knowing what I know, I would make them a slight underdog to lose to either the Suns or the Nuggets.
I would take with the value the 8-1 for them to win the Western Conference Finals. I really would. I do think that they could beat the Suns in the Western Conference Finals. I don't think they could beat the Nuggets, but again, anything could happen in a 7-game series. So with that value, I will take that. All right. Well, that is our episode for today. I know time just flies by. We have so much to talk about next week. Selection Sunday is this Sunday. It is literally my favorite day of the year. I sit in front of my TV. I watch the live broadcast. A lot of picks I make just from watching that broadcast. I go with my gut. I don't read the experts. That's always been my strategy. Won a few brackets over the years. Haven't done well the last, I'd say 2 seasons, but I can't wait. Robert, before we sign off, any last words or thoughts for the audience?
Yes. I'm not picking Gonzaga.
Are you sure? Like, am I going to see your bracket next week and see you have Gonzaga in the Final Four? So because you're not picking them, that means they're going to win it this year. Isn't that always what happens?
No, I'm staying away, please. No more. Can't take any more pain.
All right. Well, Robert and I will be back next week. Got a ton to talk about. Everyone, I hope you enjoy your weekend and take care.